The purpose of this video is to discuss the drawing process that's going to be used for exercise 5. This one's slightly more difficult because there's a lot of features, but again, it starts the exact same way. New drawing, give it my name, say OK. A size drawing, and OK. And what this is going to do is this is going to bring in some different views here. Now these views are pretty small and it's going to be a little bit hard to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to double click where it says scale 1/64th, and I'm going to change that to a 32nd. And what that should do is double the size of all of my views. That's going to make life a little bit easier as I'm trying to get in here and put in all of my dimensions. But what I can see now is that this sheet might actually be a little bit small for what I'm trying to do. So it's going to be tight as far as dimensions are concerned, and I may not necessarily be able to get all the dimensions on that I need. So at this point, not having done a whole lot of work, it's not a big deal if I come up here and say window close and go right back to my original file, go to new drawing, give it my name, say OK, and say B-sized drawing instead of A-sized drawing. The beauty of being able to do this stuff using an electronic format is you'd never have to worry about doing a whole bunch of work only to find that it doesn't fit. And again, I'm going to come down here to my scale and make that 1/32. So now I can see I've got all three of my views in place. I've got my isometric view, and from here I can begin to actually do all of my dimensioning. Just like I did with the previous drawing though, what I'm going to do is left click on this view, and under my annotate tab I'm going to go to show model annotations, and I will go over and just bring in each of those center lines so that I have them in this view. I'll apply that, come over to this view, show model annotations, bring in that center line, and you can bring in the center lines for the other ones, but really it's not going to be that important because we don't necessarily want to dimension to those in that view anyway. I've got a lot of information to put into this top view, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the smallest dimension I have. By starting with the smallest dimension, it's going to make it easier in the long run to continue adding dimensions further out. And then we'll go from this one to this one. There's 30, this one to this one, that is also 30, and in this case I'm going to go ahead and stagger these a little bit just so that I can get all the information that I need in here. Okay, so what you can see is rather than leaving it up for the assumption that everything is centered, I've gone ahead and made it so that it really has a dimension defining the fact that this is centered between here. Now I've got most of my dimensions this way now covered just based on doing those two views. So what I want to do is I want to create a couple of additional dimensions down here so that I can get more information. This is going to be a dimension of 40 right here. This one is 55, this is 15, this is 10. Now, I've been using a lot of the room that I have, but I've gotten a lot of the stuff dimensioned that I need to have dimensioned. So the only other dimension that I necessarily need in here for right now is a dimension between here and here, which is going to be 10. And it doesn't really matter if my dimensions are on the inside or the outside, but just because it is a general rule, I'll move it to the outside. Next, I'm going to come back up to dimension, and I'm going to grab this line right here with a double click and have that say diameter 20. Now I'm going to double click this, or slow right click on it, and say edit attachment. I'm sorry, not edit attachment, properties. And in the properties I can do anything that I need to do in here as far as display. You can see here it has diameter at D, and all I want to do is after that I want to come in here and add the word 3 holes. And I'll say OK. And what that does is that makes it so that I do not have to go through and do anything fancy. This one right here, I've got a couple of dimensions that I need to place for this. But the benefit that I now have is that everything is sort of lined up. So I can come in here and I can place this dimension, and placing it from here is going to get really messy really fast. So I'm going to kind of avoid working to that dimension right now. And then over here, I've already got the 15 dimensioned, I've got the 100 dimensioned, I've got the height of 10. What I know that I need is a dimension right here that says diameter 30. And again, I'm going to come in here and go to Properties, Display, and I'm going to change this to 2 holes. We'll say OK to that. Now I know there's 2 holes that are being defined on this particular piece. Go back to my dimension command. Dimension from here to here is 20. Overall height from here to here is 40. And then if I want, I can try to find a place to squeeze in another dimension over here for this edge to here, or I can go from this back edge to this point right here. But what that's going to do is that's going to have a lot of my lines crossing and stuff like that. So in this case, it may be a good idea to either eliminate the need for that dimension completely, or allow the math to work out and figure out how big this is simply based on the dimensional values that I already have here and here. You could figure out exactly what the placement of that hole is, even though it's on top as opposed to on the bottom. So now with all the dimensions in place, the only dimension that I'm missing so far is an overall height dimension, which I'll go ahead and place. So here we've got our 65, and I'll just move that so that it's a little bit easier to see what's going on here. Now everything is dimensioned, everything has its values. Want to just verify and double check that nothing is really double dimensioned. We do have kind of a double dimension in here, where if I have a 10, a 20, a 40, and a 65, I don't necessarily need to know that this is 15, but for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there. So in this video, we've retrieved dimensions from the model. We've changed from the default A size sheet to a B size sheet so that we have enough room, and we've dimensioned everything. Now, when I go to Publish and I select PDF and Export, as soon as I save this to my desktop, what you'll notice is that the PDF file is also a B-sized PDF. You don't have to go through and change any of the settings or do any of that stuff. It's going to be picked up automatically.